I first saw Vincent while I was riding my bicycle on my paper route.
I remember that moment when you was taking papers in our neighborhood, and I was captured by those big ponytails on you, and I wanted to meet you. And I wanted to meet you, and finally I got up enough nerve to say, why won't you talk to boys? And then you said, uh, my dad said that I had to talk to you first. Remember that?
Yes, and I remember watching you or seeing you maybe 2 or 3 days before. And I said, why does this guy keep showing up? Does he have a problem?
Well, the problem was I was trying to meet you, but then finally you told me what I had to do. So I made up my mind to go to your house and to meet your father and ask your dad if I could talk to you. That's all, just talk. And of course he wanted to know who I was and who my parents was, things of that sort. But after he found out who I was and who my parents was, and that his sister lived right across the street from our home, he gave me permission to talk to Montina, or to Montina.
And I am so thankful for being an obedient child, to follow my father's instructions. And even as an adult, I know the power of following my father's instructions, even my Heavenly Father's instructions. Yeah.
And from that moment, we began dating. I was in the 10th, no, I was in the 11th grade, and she was in the 10th grade. And we was attending Northeastern High School, and we were dating, of course, but the prom was coming up. It was the close of a year, and I wanted her to ask her to go to the prom, and that was tumultuous in my life because I didn't think she was going to say yes. Finally, she did say yes to just take her to the prom.
The prom was an interesting and exciting experience. First thing, I had a Cymbidium orchid given to me by my first love. And somehow I lost the orchid. And then the second funny thing that occurred, he asked if I wanted to dance. Only to my surprise, he didn't know how to dance. And I said, well, why did you ask me to dance and you don't know how to dance? So I got on the floor and was showing him how to dance, and he froze. And that was the end of the dance at the prom.
Well, not totally. I had a way of dancing, but I wasn't moving as much as she was moving. And in the process, we found the orchid that had fell on the floor. But we got through it, and it was an exciting time. But from that moment on, our dating became more long-term. We was falling deeper and deeper in love, and I don't know if we really knew what love was, but we became very good friends. I would go over her house every weekend and take her out either to the movies, and our famous place we would go is a place on House Street where we would stop and get Philly steak sandwiches, and we passed it coming into it. But that's where we would just go, between McDonald's and Philly Steakhouse. We would go out have dinner together.
Yes. And some of my favorite times as we were dating, I enjoyed playing in the yard with neighborhood children. Always enjoyed children, and I was a very athletic teenager. Baseball, basketball, kickball, volleyball, and he would always get jealous because I made a point to finish my time with the young people, the children in the neighborhood, before having time, one-on-one time with him. And sometimes he would just get so jealous, he would get out on the pavement and play baseball with all of us. At that time, we didn't have baseball fields, we didn't have basketball courts. We just played in the yard, in the street in front of the house.
I wouldn't call it jealousy. I would call it time not spent with me. But we did have a good time. And I saw early on her commitment to play with kids. She loved kids. Throughout the rest of our lives together, she still has that magnetism that draws kids to her, even now. We have a bunch of kids now that want to have relationships with us, but we don't even know them. But it's still that magnet that she has to attract children to.
And my husband always asks for their social security number because we try to be a blessing and try to be an encouragement to young people. And that encouragement has fueled many of their lives. And that was the fuel for us to be who we are today.
Well, what I really like most about Montina is our relationship grew to the point that I could call her mom. Not because she had a mothering spirit about her, but my mother died when I was 10 years old. And I never had someone to fill that void. Older people, aunts, that stepped in, but when we had a relationship, I could start calling her mom because she filled a void in my life that been missing for such a long time. And then her hair reminded me of my mother's hair. Her smile reminded me of my mother's smile. And she just started reminding me of somebody that was missing in my life from my childhood. And that's why I know she was the one. And our friendship began to grow. To the point that I was just at a young age just said, we need to get married. And will you marry? And I had been in ministry about 6 months, and I knew that I needed a helpmate in ministry, and I asked her, would you marry? And I didn't get an answer right off the bat. Like I thought I would, but I didn't get it. But she said, and I think she did something very smart. She wanted counsel from her dad and her mom and some other people in her life before she made that commitment, which was smart.
Ask the question.
Tell me what you like or love most about Vincent.
I love Vincent because he is who he is. Kind, very thoughtful, a man of integrity, vision, And I a man of a thoughtful heart. The most I love Vincent so much. I enjoy and love being your wife. That's my heart, just being a good wife, a good helpmate, a good adapter to be what you need for me to be to and for you. I love being the mother of our children. And Lord knows, I love being the grandmother of those 6 beautiful grandchildren. And I thank God for the gift of our youth and our marriage. You are my best friend.
I proposed to Montina on one of our date nights. It was a Friday night, and we used to work at a department store called Montina. And I proposed to her one of our date nights after work at the
Philly steak sandwich.
Yeah, that's right. Philly steak sandwich restaurant. And we were just sitting there, and I asked, I said, "Will you marry me?" And she paused and started nodding, but the word yes didn't come out like I was expecting. But the proposal was at the restaurant. I do remember.
Yeah, it was at the Philly cheese steak restaurant over Philly cheese steak and cheese and a Coke.
Yep.
And French fries.
Absolutely.
Yes. Marriage is a commitment with the center of the marriage being prayer and committed to each other and making sure we communicate with one another. The road has been easy because God has been in our Christ-centered marriage.
I too came from this unique city of Elizabeth City, North Carolina. As I stated, that my mother died when I was 10, but I was the last of 7 children, and my father was committed to making sure we stayed together as a family. We were attending St. Catherine's Catholic School. I started in the 1st grade and went through the 8th grade. And I started a year before I was old enough to go to 1st grade. And I think remember my dad saying that if you take 3 of them, then you're gonna have to take him 2, even though I was not old enough to go. And the Catholic school really gave me a good foundation of a religious life. We got to study about the life of Christ, and it really sparked something in me, although I didn't know what it really was. But that relationship was something I wanted to have. And then we was in church all the time. I mean, if it wasn't St. James A.M.E. Zion Church, then it was St. James Baptist Church. And if it wasn't St. James Baptist Church, it was Mount Lebanon A.M.E. Zion Church, where we sit today. But we were in church all the time. I remember becoming the youth choir president. And I tell people even today, they made me president because I couldn't sing. I said, well, he has good administrative skills, so let him be the president. But I really didn't have the voice to sing as they were singing. But that was something that was happening in my life personally. I didn't know what was going on. I was hanging around Reverend Pierre, and my brother, I followed him from church to church as he was given appointments. And there was a drawing, but I didn't know what was really going on until one Sunday morning when I gave my life to Christ. And from that moment on, I just started building upon that to be something that God was shaping me to become. And then after I graduated from Northeastern High School, I was enrolled at Elizabeth City State University and studying biology. And I just loved science for some reason. And then I was given an opportunity to go to Mary Young School. And at the same time, as I was telling somebody, I was given scholarship to go to Princeton Theological School to work on my Master's of Divinity at the same time. But I was given advice from a bishop that going to dental school will enhance your ministry. And of course, that's what I did.
When I graduated from high school, always a good student in high school, I went to my father and told him I wanted to go to college. And being one of 8 children, with tears in his eyes, my dad said, we just can't afford for you to go to school. He said, maybe if you could work a few years, you could save your money and go to college. My heart was broken and my heart was shattered. But my father was the only one working in the household. And I obeyed my father. And I took a job working at Sheepharney Elementary School as a custodian. And one of my teachers saw me working, mopping, laying wax, stripping floors with that buffer, power in the buffer. And she said, Montina, why are you working here as a custodian? And I told her my parents didn't have the resources, didn't have the money for me to go to college. One thing I remember about Daddy, in his wisdom, he said, if it's meant for you to go, the Lord will make a way for you. And he said, even though I don't have the money, the best gift I can give you is Jesus. Study his word, and he will make a way for you. There's power in being obedient to the Father, because there were people in the community, teachers, who knew my potential and encouraged me to move forward. This teacher told me about grant money that was available, which I had no idea. BEOG and SEOG, and she told me to talk with Ms. Alva Newby, and yes, I want to call her name because Mrs. Newby changed my life. I applied for BEOG and SEOG and was accepted at Elizabeth City University with a full ride. I moved from Elizabeth City, I moved from Sheep Harney as a janitor and worked at Elizabeth City Junior High School in the cafeteria, serving behind the food line. And was able to start at Elizabeth City working at the school and the university. I was so honored to attend Elizabeth City State University. I was able to complete a 4-year program in 3 years with honors. But the beauty of this whole circle of life, working as a custodian, stripping floors and cleaning bathrooms and cleaning the commodes, working in the food line, serving behind the food line at in the cafeteria, propelled my career as a classroom teacher to being promoted to an assistant principal, from an assistant principal to a building level principal, from a building level principal to the assistant to the superintendent of Knox County Schools to advocate for children who were so much like me, to be their voice and to be their advocate.
And during my journey at Elizabeth City State and then on to Meharry's School of Dentistry, after graduating, I started to practice, but I have to give kudos to the state of North Carolina, who gave scholarship for minority students that attend professional schools outside of the state of North Carolina. But we had to be committed to come back to North Carolina to go to work. So, but I love Tennessee so well, I guess, that I practiced dentistry there for over 20 years.
Give to her sister, and all I did was
Gave him the
to
car.
her. And she said, my sister said that she knows you. I said, yes. And she said, where do you want to live?
Wow.
The apartments or the towers? And I said, well, now that I got a choice, because I was on my way back home.
And from Elizabeth City.
That's
We
a
didn't
long
know
way.
about towers.
We didn't know
Yeah,
about towers. But I ended up staying in Herman Street Apartments that was owned by me.
Yeah, and when he saw the towers, he said, man,
I could have been living home.
15 floor high rise. But we didn't know.
I had no idea.
You don't
So,
know what you don't know.
I was in the big city, and they was telling me, how much money you got? I said, $600. I'm like, you got just enough gas money to get back home.
And afraid somebody was going to
Gonna
rob
take
him.
it. So
Yeah.
I put it in my sock.
Yeah.
I was scared to death I was going to get robbed. But the Lord made it. You take care of
Jesus
yourself. I'm lonely.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at it. Keep that.
All right, let's talk about getting started in ministry in the AME Zion Church. I got my call right here at Mount Lebanon in 1973, but I preached my trial sermon in January of 1974 right here on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And my father in ministry was the Reverend Dr. Maurice Field. I was telling someone this morning my trial sermon was exactly 7 minutes and 45 seconds long. And we was talking about owning a piece of the rock. It was a good start, and I didn't know then what I know now, how important that rock is in ministry. But after doing the trial sermon and it conclusion of it, Bishop W. James White, J.W. White, he heard about this young man preaching his trial sermon, and at the annual conference 6 months later, I was appointed to a church, Piney Grove, AME Zion Church in Tyler, North Carolina. And at that time, I had 2 more years before I graduated from Elizabeth City State University. And then after graduating from Elizabeth City State University, I was accepted to Meharry School of Ministry. And I was assigned to a church in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Breakfield Chapel. And then after finishing dental school, I went to Hood Theological Seminary for a period of time. Then Bishop Coleman assigned me to the Clinton Chapel in Zion Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, which I spent 7 years. And then he assigned me to the Greater Warner Tabernacle in Zion Church in Knoxville. And I only stayed there 2 years because Bishop Enoch Rochester said, "You have administrative abilities of a presiding elder." And I immediately told him, all presiding elders are old. I'm too young to be a presiding elder. But he appointed me the presiding elder of the Knoxville, Maryland district in Tennessee. Tennessee Conference. There I served as presiding elder 14 years before being transferred to the Virginia Conference. Pastored 2 churches here, St. Joseph AME Zion Church and St. Mark AME Zion Church, and Bishop Thompson appointed me as presiding elder of the Ordination District. And to that day, to this, we have been now presiding elder for 25 years in Newport News. So that's Trail to Ministry. And then, of course, she was called into ministry. She started as an exhorter for 16 years. And then she became a local preacher. She too was an ordained elder in the AME Zion Church. So we've been working together on this journey.
It has been a journey, but the challenge was finding the balance. And for me, home has always been the priority. Being the best wife, best mother, and supporting my husband in ministry. So finding the balance has been the challenge, but the beauty of working in that balance. Loving the people, serving the people has been our greatest asset in ministry.
I agree with her wholeheartedly. It has to be a balance. We always put God first. Then we put the family, and then the church. I think a lot of ministers get it twisted when they spend so much energy and time in the church, they neglect their family. And we did not want that to happen, because it really can discourage your children to become a part of something that they always are a part of. They never had a life outside the church, but we had to do juggling act to keep them in sports and keep them motivated and other things outside of the church. The church is just one aspect of life. Going to school and making a good home, and then serving the people of God. You just gotta keep the, as my wife said, a balance. And you gotta find that niche to really make it work. And if I could go back and do anything over again, it would be spending more time with the family. I mean, I was so structured, I guess. Even on vacation, I said, okay, it's 9 o'clock, we need to be here. And at 10 o'clock, we need to be there. But on vacation, you ought to be into keeping a time schedule. You ought to just be able to relax and enjoy. But one of the things we were committed to doing is having family time. And sitting down and talking about their day. And how we can help them make the day better. A lot of people look at us now and say, oh boy, Elder and Mrs. Jones or Dr. Jones, they got it going on, but they don't know what it took for us to get to where we are. They look at where we at, but they don't know what it took for us to get there. We had priorities. Education was one of them. We felt not only our kids, but even our grandkids, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, you got to get a solid foundation. And once you get that, number one, nobody can take it from you. Number two, it's always something you can build on. It's always something you can expand and explore. And once you get it in your system, you want more. You want to see more. You want to go more. And you want to give more. And that's been our motto right with all our lives. I think we made this commitment when we got married and when we entered ministry. We just sat down and started writing down goals. What we want out of this, what we're going to do. Are we going to be more educated in this area, or how can we make an impact wherever we go? And one of the things we learned was we had to use our relationship to reach other people. And we didn't even know we had that until the wife of one of the former pastors of this church, the Reverend Dr. Babington Johnson, his wife called us one night and said, you two need to go and talk to this couple. And I said, about what? And said, you need to tell them about you two, your marriage. You need to just talk to them. And we did that, not knowing that other people were looking at us and our relationship and wanted us to share that ministry or start a ministry, a couple's ministry to minister to others. And we didn't know we had that gift, or we didn't know we had that ability. We were just living our lives. But other people saw that as a ministry. And we began to minister to other couples that was having challenges. I don't call it struggles or trouble, but it's always a challenge, because a challenge we can overcome. So we started that part of our ministry is ministering to other couples. And we just started with the basics. A lot of them did not have premarital counseling. They just jumped in it. And after they got in it, they didn't know what they got into. So we went back to the drawing board and showed them what marriage is all about. But if you keep God first, and you keep family next, and then you're working the church third, the Lord will see you through every level of your experience.
And marriage is a ministry, trusting the process. You know I love roses. And as Presiding Elder said, we look at the end. But if you look at the rose, you see the beauty of that flower. But the proof in the process is understanding the power of the thorn, understanding the power of nurturing that plant, taking care of that plant day by day, week after week. And we have learned to trust the process. Yes, in ministry, we have had many tears and sorrows. We've even had questions for tomorrow. In this ministry, there have been times we have felt all alone. But the power in the process, we have learned. Let me put emphasis on the word learn. We have learned to trust in Jesus. And we have learned to trust in God. Our marriage has been a ministry as unto the Lord.
Marriage is ministry, and ministry is marriage. To God be the glory for the great things He has done.